Hi, I'm Andrew McBean from Grant Thornton in Thailand. As you know, we've been discussing automation a lot this year, and I'm really happy to be joined by my colleague from Grant Thornton in India, from our digital practice, Pranav. Welcome to Thailand.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here and interacting with you.
Thank you. It's great to welcome you. We've had some great meetings this week. So maybe you could tell us more about yourself and the work that you're doing in India.
Yeah, absolutely. So Andrew, I take care of digital transformation as an area for the India firm, and as part of that practice, I sort of help clients, large corporates, to help them define their overall digital vision, digital strategy, helping them create a sort of a portfolio which they can sort of embark upon in next 18 to 24 months, all across digital sort of interventions, helping them drive large business cases, and of course helping them with setup of center of excellence for digital to drive these things more independently and sustainably within their organizations. So that's broadly what I do. But at the same time, I also help them once the roadmap is sort of defined. We also help them in terms of implementation of that roadmap. So in that aspect, I help clients in terms of things around intelligent automation, which is sort of a broadish umbrella term that we use for robotics process automation, low-cost automation, AI, machine learning, chatbot-related things, workflow automation. From a perspective of other technologies, I also lead blockchain as a capability area for the firm. So we're doing some interesting pieces of work in supply chain traceability using blockchain, use of NFTs in terms of employee engagement, customer engagement. So we can certainly sort of talk about those examples, very exciting sort of things and very exciting sort of ways in which technology can actually sort of help businesses. So that's what is my role in GT India. And again, very happy to sort of be here.
You're very welcome. So Pranav, in my experience, and it's not just Thailand, I know this is an issue everywhere, is that when a customer embarks on their automation journey, one of the very hardest things they find, but it's also one of the most crucial things because it really starts the entire journey, is discovering automatable processes. So it's incredibly hard to do, and without that, we don't really have the sort of the fuel in the engine. So how do customers go about discovering these processes in their organization?
Very, very good question, and very sort of important question also for enterprises who are thinking of embarking on this journey. Firstly, I feel these are things which requires a lot of sort of sponsorship from several stakeholders, right from the top.
Yes.
Because these are not technologies or things which are meant to be done in very siloed ways, very departmental ways, or very sort of process-centric ways. These are more enterprise sort of grade technologies and should be dealt in the same way as well. So right sponsorship across the organization is very, very important. Once you have the right sponsorship, of course, you can sort of select a department. Generally, we have seen finance and accounting as a very prime candidate because processes are very standardized. There are mature systems that are being used to sort of do these activities, which is like a precursor for having a good automation sort of a project to start with. So again, yes, identify the right sort of sponsors in the organization, identify the right sort of function where you want to sort of start your journey. Once you've identified that, then it's very important that you carry a sort of embark upon a sort of a detailed assessment exercise, which sort of looks at different sort of processes, activities that people are engaged in. What is the technology landscape? What is the data flows that are there typically in that organization, in that function? And of course, looking at how sort of a benefit can be reaped by sort of identifying the right sort of automation tools and technologies. So very important to invest that time upfront because that leads to a program which sort of helps you realize the true potential of automation once you get into an implementation sort of phase.
Yeah, and there's a standard formula to this. It's like not a top secret process, is it? There's a standard way to approach this.
Yeah, there is a standard way. There is a sort of a very sort of a standardized way. Of course, it's very contextual to an organization. You have to adapt that methodology to an organization because every organization is different in terms of their maturity across processes, people, technology, even in terms of investment appetite, even in terms of new technology onboarding. So several of these factors play a very important role when we are deciding a journey for an organization. But yes, doing sort of process assessment workshops to understand what are the activities, who are the people doing it, how many people are doing it, what are the key systems that are being used to do those activities. Very important to understand, and then prioritizing these opportunities. And prioritization happens across several levers. It's just not about things which can be automated, but things which may lead to more automation, which is more about scalability of the program. Looking at effort to implement is also something which is very crucial, because you don't want to invest in process, or you don't want to start with process which may probably take a longer time to sort of deliver. At the same time, business criticality risk, you may not want to start with some things which are absolutely critical and maybe sort of high on risk side of things to start your automation journey. Yeah, and of course things like process lead time, some things which are taking very long time to sort of do. So several of these factors play a role when we are sort of deciding the priority order of these opportunities. And of course, once you have these individual opportunities, it's not about automating these just using some technologies. You have to look at it more from a broader lens, that how these opportunities can actually connect and form a larger sort of a journey, which will probably give you higher value. So I think that's very important when you're sort of looking at assessments and identifying a sort of a roadmap for yourself.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Like a customer journey.
Absolutely, yes. And customer journey may actually have a touch point across sales and marketing, certain customer-oriented functions. It may have a touch point with finance and accounting, post sort of sales, customer service sort of departments. Several of these sort of functions and departments actually connect to deliver an end-to-end sort of a customer journey. And it's very important that you weave those parts into it, and that's when the actual potential of automation and digital technologies actually sort of come forth.
Yep. We hear quite a lot in Thailand. In fact, I think, again, quite a global thing. We hear quite a lot about this term, proof of concept, this POC. And you were saying earlier on that, in fact, that term is kind of morphed over time, and in fact is now somewhere else. And I think it's quite useful to understand. So what is the journey of this proof of concept?
So Andrew, I can talk about like when automation came, and it sort of a lot of organizations started adopting it around 2015, 2016. That's when the term was more looked at as proof of technology. People were sort of apprehensive that would it really work? Would it really be able to do what it claims to do? So that time it was more about proving that automation tools can actually come into your landscape and can interact with applications, can interact with business systems, and be able to perform things and do things what they claim to. Then, as we sort of went ahead in that sort of a journey, we started looking at things more like proof of concepts, which are more pertinent or which are more sort of relatable to processes, say even in case of sort of larger sort of journeys. And people started looking at, or organizations started looking at things like, if this is my finance and accounting process, say maybe a case like invoice processing, and maybe my competitors are doing this, can I also do this and get sort of this sort of a thing automated? So it was more about, from technology it went to more like processes and business activities as such. But now I think where we stand at the moment, I think these things are more or less proven. There are a lot of use cases in the market. the technology has proven its worth. Now it's more about proof of success. Right. So, which is more about, are we getting the right benefit? Are we really getting the value out of automating invoice processing, or say things like bank reconciliations, which are very common use cases across any finance and accounting function. So it's more about looking at it from a success point of view, which is the benefit, which is the true potential of leveraging these technologies, and are we getting it right?
Right. Another very quick death for automation is choosing the wrong proof of success or proof of concept, proof of technology, which frankly happens way too often as well. What is a good selection for an initial proof of success?
So Andrew, I'll go back to my first a thing, which is around doing your own assessments. Because every assessment in an organization is very contextual. As I was saying, that organizations are at different maturity levels across their system landscape, people, process, so many other things play out. So carry out your assessments. You will have a list of opportunities, connect them together, and then look at also from an external lens perspective, what are your competitors doing specifically? What are other industry players doing in that space? Are these use cases which we have identified also resonate with that a segment? So that's an additional a thing, like it validates your hypothesis much better, because some things have already been done in the past around that. Then it's very important to look at the way you have prioritized and you have created your business cases. And business cases more in terms of looking at what is the investment going to be, what is the benefit I'm going to get, because you don't want to pick up some things right at the start of your program which may probably be low on value. So you may want to start with use cases which are probably what I call them as low-hanging fruits. Some things easier to implement, faster to deliver, but they have a good value associated with it, so that the organization also sees the benefit fairly quickly, that we are investing in this, and this is the proof of the pudding that we are talking about. So that comes out fairly quickly, and that's where you get a buy-in from a larger a stakeholder pool in your organization. So
you got to have this wow factor at the beginning, otherwise you run out of steam, you don't have the energy, nobody's supporting it, everybody's questioning it right from the beginning when it's already hard enough. I've heard you talk quite often, and I like this term, about digital intervention. I really like that term. So what do you mean by digital intervention?
So I think automation is certainly one part to the puzzle, but there are several other parts when we are looking at a larger a digital transformation a story for an organization. And even in case of automation, we're not just talking about, say, robotics process automation, RPA, what we call as. There's so many other things that actually come along with it. There's, in fact, a lot of scripting that is done using VBAs, Pythons, which get integrated along with RPA tools. Of late, we've seen a very, very good adoption and traction in terms of low cost, no license automations, leveraging Python, Selenium, those of things. Alongside workflow automations, integrating with, say, machine learning models, AI related technologies. So it's like a lot of things getting connected, interconnected to deliver a a proposition which has a very enhanced value as such. So that's what I call as digital interventions. And sometimes it's also about, say, web apps, web forms, websites, certain things like data visualization tools coming and giving you very good insights. You can automate your reports and MIS things which are required in the organization. So it's all several technologies, several tools. Some are licensed, some could be sort of open source, several things coming together to sort of give you a view that these are different digital interventions that you may require in your organization to really reap the benefits from digital.
So one process could actually have lots of different digital interventions. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've got one process and the digital intervention is robots. It actually could be you've got one process and this part would be better done by automation, this bit done by, so you've got different potential digital interventions in a process.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's how you sort of get a true value from your digital initiatives. It's if you try to paint everything through one technology, first of all, it may not be the right technology. It may not be a feasible technology also. And that's where somebody has to sort of play that role of a sort of a larger sort of a digital champion in your organization who understands technologies that can actually sort of be weaved into a sort of a larger sort of a journey. And then that's where when the journey gets sort of digitalized or automated, that's when you start getting benefits which are probably multiple times X of using just one technology as such.
Yeah. And I think this kind of previously, the idea that the answer to everything was automation, whereas in fact, as you mentioned, it's about different digital interventions, has led to the view perhaps that automation equals big company. But actually it doesn't mean that. Can you give some examples of where you have seen it not just big company with efficiency savings? There are other examples, many other examples in fact, where it's not about just that.
True. In fact, you rightly sort of pointed out, very large organizations are looking at typically efficiency savings to start, at least from an automation perspective. That's what is their agenda, because they may have a lot of capacity which is probably not used optimally, and they may want to sort of look at it from a perspective how technologies can sort of bring more efficiency as such. But of late, in fact, we work a lot with startups, mid-sized sort of companies back in India, and their sort of lookout from these technologies is not about efficiency. It's more about supporting them in their growth journeys, because these are organizations which are sort of doubling up their top lines every year or every 2 years. And their mandate is not to linearly increase, say, finance and accounting functions or say other support functions to support their growth. Their idea of looking at these technologies is how can technology bridge that gap, that I use my same sort of people count but be able to support larger business as such. And that's where digital comes to sort of comes forth, and they can sort of actually get benefits for doing the same sort of things for a larger sort of an organization with same sort of pool of resources or pool of things.
And we had that meeting today with a small business doubling in size every year, but that doesn't want to double in size the back office, but wants to get out there with the front office and serving customers better and quicker. So there's a classic example, in fact.
I think there are a lot of proofs like that, in fact.
Absolutely. Scaling. When we go back to these maybe medium-sized, large organizations, again, I see that scaling is quite difficult for clients. Again, if we go back, I think the automation companies used to say, this is super easy, 3 months and you've got your return on investment, just keep throwing out robots, you're going to make money, it's all going to come back to you. It's not that easy. There are some, now the benefit is significant, it's very exponential if you can get to scale, but there is some secret sauce to achieving that. So what are those?
So Andrew, I think very, very important aspect is the right sort of time that you invest initially, which is about identifying the right opportunities, having a right roadmap. At the same time, when you embark on your journey, you need to have right sort of policies, frameworks, governance that needs to be defined upfront before you sort of embark on these programs. Then as you go into a sort of a implementation sort of a phase, very and extremely important is the part how you create the design of these processes. And because automation is something which can only work if there is very detailed documentation, and we call it like L8, L9 level sort of documentation, which is done at click level sort of things captured, screen navigation sort of captured, business exceptions being captured, because if you've not captured the exceptions, then it'll break. And that's where people who probably not sort of invest adequate time in sort of creating these designs struggle, because they go into production, they see that the bot is sort of failing most of the times, and then that's where the whole automation sort of journey comes under a sort of a scanner and a question that what have you automated doesn't work. People sort of from the business side starts complaining that, oh, I'm still doing everything manually, the bot is of no use. So very important to create the right design at right level of detail, and then converting that sort of a functional or a process design into a technical design also, which is associated with the technology that you've selected, because the technical design has to be very, very contextual to the technology that you have created. Even in terms of different sort of RPA tools, there are different ways in which you may want to sort of implement it technically. There are different functions, there are different features. How do you sort of leverage that? So very important to have right design and right time invested in design. And then very important that how you sort of implement, because you don't want to typically sort of do big bang launches. You may want to sort of modularize the sort of functionalities that you are automating, give early exposure to people who would be using it, so that they give you sort of feedback. So it's like modularized sort of ways in which sort of help you sort of do these automations, and then giving early exposure to people using it, and then keeping them engaged throughout the process. It's not that you do one big UAT phase and then hundreds of issues sort of start coming in, then you invest a lot of time to fix that. So it's like more continuous cycles of delivery and continuous sort of engagement that you keep going throughout the program, and that's what leads to a very smooth transitioning as well once you go live. Because people are now completely aware that this is what is being automated, this is what I will probably have to do once it goes live. So they have that early exposure, early understanding of what is being done in their areas. So very important to sort of do that right. And of course, once you go live, there is an initial period which we call generally as hypercare, where we sort of monitor these things very, very closely as to how, and it's not always about whether the bot is running, whether the bot is actually producing an output which is absolutely accurate. It may produce an output, but is it 100% accurate? Because some of these things may have very pertinent risks associated as well, and you don't want to be going wrong in terms of your outputs that come out of automation. So you need to monitor it very, very closely, get functional guys to validate it. You may have to have certain sort of amount of period where you do parallel runs, where your team members are also producing same outputs, bot is also producing same outputs. Then you start sort of validating whether both of them actually sort of look the same or they're exactly the same. And then once you get that confidence, then you can sort of go into a sort of a unattended sort of a mode where bots completely sort of take over and do the job for you.
So we've got that also executive support. This is very key. It's got to be right up there at the CXO level. You've got the COE, the Center of Excellence, who's running this and has got the scorecard and is doing the measurement and reporting back to the steerco. You've also got the automation operating model, which you were talking about, which is sort of the Bible according to how you're rolling them out. And then you've got the change management program, where you're bringing employees in so that they don't feel threatened, but they feel part of the whole process.
I think that's a very, very key point, Andrew. Change management, because people should not feel threatened, for lack of a better word, I use that, but it's rather a sort of a way that they should look at it, that this is more like an assistant to them. It's going to probably help them do more value-adding work. It's going to probably help them do upskilling. It's probably going to help them do more creative, innovative, customer sort of oriented work.
Enjoyable work.
Enjoyable. So in fact, in one of the meetings, in fact, today you were saying that nobody wants to sort of get up thinking that I'm going to do the same thing again this morning. I think I really like that quote because people want to do new things and people want to sort of upscale themselves in the organization, and this is where technology can sort of help them do that, and they should look at it like that. So very important to keep the people who probably are going to be impacted, identify them early, make them your sort of partners in this journey rather than sort of being a sort of an impacted or an affected party as such. And they should know that the organization is doing this for their own benefit. The idea is that every organization grows and it should grow with the same people that have actually sort of been with them.
And they grow too.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. So yeah.
So Pranav, it's been fantastic to have you here this week. It's really, I mean, we can see from the meetings we're having that this is definitely a thing, and that we're hitting all the points that we've been finding in this meeting. And having your experience as well delivered in this way, and the fact that you've been delivering just these solutions for many years, in fact, since automation started, in fact, it's just been great to have you here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure sharing my thoughts and experiences. Yeah, thank you.